Imagine owning a country's ocean without ever firing a single shot. In 1898, the British Empire invented a legal trap called the 99-year lease to seize Hong Kong. Most people thought that era of paperwork colonialism was dead. They were wrong. Today, China has dusted off that exact same playbook, using billions in debt to quietly annex strategic ports from Asia to Africa. This isn't just about trade. It's about the silent architecture of a new global empire. And the scariest part? Your country's most vital harbor might already have a for sale sign that you can't see. The 99-year lease isn't a modern invention. It's a colonial ghost that should have stayed in the 19th century. In 1898, the British Empire forced the Ming Dynasty to sign away the new territories of Hong Kong for exactly 99 years. Why that specific number? Because in British law, a 99-year lease is effectively as good as forever. It's a psychological trick. It sounds temporary to the victim, but it's a lifetime to the conqueror. For decades, the world thought this kind of contractual colonialism died with the fall of empires. But while the West was busy moving on, Beijing was studying the fine print. They realized you don't need an invading army if you have a signature on a dotted line. Enter the debt trap architecture. It starts with a massive multi-billion-dollar offer for infrastructure that a developing nation desperately needs but can't afford. We're talking about ports, railways, and highways in places like Sri Lanka, Djibouti, and Pakistan. These aren't just loans. They are strategic mortgages. The math is designed to be impossible. When a small economy takes a $5 billion loan at high interest for a port that doesn't generate immediate profit, the trap is already set. The moment the payments stop, the ancient playbook is opened. In 2017, when Sri Lanka couldn't pay back the money for the Hambantota port, they didn't get a late fee. They were forced to hand over the entire port and 15,000 acres of land around it to China on, you guessed it, a 99-year lease. Just like Hong Kong in 1898, a piece of a sovereign nation was deleted from their map and added to another's. This is the first layer of the cold geopolitics game, using the West's old weapons to build a new invisible empire. Imagine a world map where the oceans are no longer free territory, but a series of locked gates. This is what geopolitical analysts call the string of pearls. It is a strategic necklace of naval and commercial hubs stretching from the South China Sea across the Indian Ocean all the way to the coast of Africa. Each pearl is a port that China has either built, bought, or leased. At first glance, they look like innocent commercial docks for shipping toys and iPhones. But in the world of cold geopolitics, every commercial dock is a potential dual-use military base. Take Djibouti on the Horn of Africa. It sits at the entrance to the Red Sea, the most vital choke point for global oil. China didn't just build a port there. They built their first overseas military base right next to it. They didn't need a war to get there. They just needed a contract. Then look at Gwadar in Pakistan. It's a billion-dollar deep-sea port that connects directly to Western China. This isn't just a shortcut for trade. It's a backdoor that bypasses the entire U.S. Navy in the Pacific. If a conflict breaks out, China doesn't need the Malacca Strait anymore. They have Gwadar. From Piraeus in Greece to Lekki in Nigeria, the pattern is the same. Beijing now has a stake in over 90 ports in 100 different countries. They aren't just participating in global trade. They are building a parallel maritime order. When you control the docks, you control the flow of the world's fuel, food, and most importantly, the undersea internet cables that carry 99% of global data. The message is clear. In the 21st century, the nation that owns the gates owns the world. This isn't just about ships. It's about the invisible border that is slowly closing around every sovereign nation. To understand why a 21st century superpower is obsessed with ports, you have to go back to 1405. Long before Columbus or Magellan, the Ming Dynasty launched the most massive naval force the world had ever seen, the Treasure Fleet. Led by the legendary Admiral Zheng He, these weren't just ships, they were floating cities. Some were over 400 feet long, 4 times the size of anything in Europe. But here's the cold geopolitics secret. Zheng He wasn't a conqueror in the traditional sense. He didn't want to occupy land. He wanted tribute. He sailed to Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia to advertise the absolute power of the emperor. His message was simple. Acknowledge the center, and you can keep your throne. Defy us, and we will delete you. This is the exact ancient playbook Beijing is using today. They don't want to govern Sri Lanka or Djibouti. They want those nations to acknowledge the center by being financially and strategically tied to China. In the 1400s, it was silk and porcelain. Today, it's 5G towers and high-speed rail. The treasure fleet was abandoned in the 1430s when China turned inward, a move that many historians call the greatest strategic mistake in human history. It allowed Western powers to eventually dominate the oceans for 500 years. But the message has been rediscovered. Modern China isn't just building a navy, they are restoring a status quo that existed 6 centuries ago. By securing these ports, they are reclaiming their role as the Middle Kingdom, the center of the global map. They aren't inventing a new empire, they are finishing a mission that Zhang He started before the West even knew the world was round. When China leases a port for 99 years, they aren't just getting the concrete and the cranes, they are getting the nervous system of that country. This is where the cold geopolitics gets invisible and dangerous. Every modern port is run by data, from the sensors on the docks to the logistics software tracking every container. The entire operation is digital. When a Chinese state-owned enterprise like Huawei or ZTE installs the 5G infrastructure to run these smart ports, they aren't just providing a service, they are installing a filter. Imagine a master switch in Beijing. If a conflict breaks out, or if a nation stops acknowledging the center, that switch can be flipped. Suddenly, the cranes stop moving. The logistics software glitches. The internet cables that land at those ports, the same cables that carry 99% of your country's banking, military, and private data, become monitored. This is the digital Silk Road. By controlling the physical port and the digital architecture inside it, China creates a smart cage around a nation's economy. You can keep your flag and your president, but if someone else owns your data and your trade routes, do you really own your country? In ports like Piraeus in Greece, the efficiency has skyrocketed since the Chinese takeover, but so has the dependency. Greece is now the gateway for Chinese goods into Europe. If the digital cage closes, the keys aren't in Athens, they're 5,000 miles away. The ancient playbook has been upgraded with fiber optic cables, making the 99-year lease not just a land grab, but a data grab. The final stage of the 99-year lease isn't about profit, it's about alignment. When a country hands over its most strategic asset, it loses more than just land. It loses the ability to say no. This is the ultimate goal of cold geopolitics, to create a world where every nation's foreign policy is tethered to Beijing's interests by a golden chain of debt. If a conflict breaks out in the South China Sea or over Taiwan, what does a country like Sri Lanka or Djibouti do? They can't remain neutral. Their most important harbor is controlled by the very power they might be asked to oppose. The lease effectively turns a sovereign port into a strategic outpost for a foreign superpower without a single shot being fired. We are seeing the map of the world being redrawn, not with blood, but with ink. From the message of the Ming Dynasty to the modern playbook of the 21st century, the strategy has remained the same. Control the gates, and you control the world. As we look toward 2030, the question isn't which country will be the next superpower. The question is, how much of your own country do you actually own? When the 99-year clock starts ticking, the temporary lease becomes a permanent reality. The British used it to build an empire that defined the 20th century. Now, China is using it to build a global order that will define the next 100 years. The trap is set, the contracts are signed, and for many nations, the countdown has already begun.